On everybody. I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon, pre-noon, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Hasan Piker, and this is the Hasanabi broadcast coming to you live from, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe I'm about to say this, coming to you live from fucking Londonistan, lads. Fucking hell. Coming to you live from Londonistan. Straight from the fucking heart of lions, lads. We're out here, right? We're fucking hell. We're doing a fucking thing. We're doing a fucking thing, yeah? No Americans. And it's a very beautiful day, innit? It's a special day, innit? That's right. It's a very important fucking day here in Londonistan history. And here for the fucking Hasanabi broadcast as well. Ladies and gents. You know it, I know it, we all fucking know it. It's a special day for an occasion. And do you want to know what a fucking occasion is, lads? The occasion is that it's a fucking Tuesday. And you know what that fucking means, right? It's time for a fucking heist, lads. That's right. I'm here with a fucking Tony Two-Tone and three of my best fucking guys, right? And we're here to do a fucking heist. We're here to do a fucking heist, boys. That's right. Boris, what the fuck are you, Boris? It's time. It's time to get the fucking fisticuffs, Boris. Let's go. We're doing a fucking heist. We're going to Cambridge Uni. We're going to Oxford fucking Uni. And we're stealing the Constitution from both of these fucking unis. We're going to show these fucking college kids what's what, yeah? That's right, lads. It's my honor to tell you that it's a fucking Newsday Tuesday. That's been a while. For those of you who are wondering, I'm in London. In the United Kingdom. I'm in London, England, United Kingdom. And for a lot of people might not know this, but back in the days, every Tuesday morning, we used to have a little fun. Every time I started my broadcast on a Tuesday, I'd have a little bit of fun by doing this little thing where I'd be talking about how I'm going to be conducting a heist. Now, my brain is not working as intended. It's not the best right now, I will admit. Okay, so I'm going to have to be dialing it back a little bit. I'm going to have to dial it back a little bit more than I normally do. So, what am I doing here in London? Well, there's a really simple answer. It's because I'm here to steal the Constitution of the United Kingdom. But the real reason is because I'm going to be speaking at Oxford Union and Cambridge Union. I ended the broadcast last night. This is the part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news about what's going on in the world of Hasan and I've been between time period where I press the stop streaming button, press the start streaming button. And let me tell you, first and foremost, ended the broadcast, rushed over to the airport, got on a fucking plane, and then fell asleep, woke up, boom, boom, bap, boom, I'm here. I find out, I land in England. I find out that the sun sets on this empire. In the past, people used to say the sun never sets on this empire. Turns out it does. At 3 fucking p.m., it starts setting on the empire where the sun never sets. It turns out it certainly does set, and it sets at 3 p.m., which is insane. I think it's understandable that these guys colonize the whole world now. Like, it's not a justification for colonialism and the violence and the bloodshed that the British Empire caused. But like, if my shit was so busted that the weather was always rainy, and on top of that, during the winter, the sun started setting at 3, I'd be like, I'm either going to kill myself or I have to kill everyone else. You know what I mean? It's a dog eat dog world out there. And finding out that the sun sets at 2 p.m., the sun started setting at 3 p.m. made me understand everything. You know what I mean? Yeah, I would be like, if I stay here, I'll kill myself. I'm gonna need to move around. I'm gonna need to go to some tropical destination. That's not even just a UK time zone be fucked. That's like, my time zone is already fucked as it is, because I'm cooked. Like I'm 8 hours. I am 8 hours ahead of where I normally am, and I'm hungry, so I'm gonna be eating. Tomorrow I am going to be speaking at Cambridge. You're gonna see all of that. It's a lot of fun. We're gonna film all of it. I have like a little bit of a speech that I'm gonna be doing, and then after that speech, there's like a moderated Q&A, just like USC, and then after that, it's just gonna be like Q&A from students. That's where I suspect a lot of debate lords will kick in. That's neither here nor there. We can't link up with Corbyn. He's at a prior obligation for months ahead of time, apparently. Personal news-wise, that's it. I'm here. My whole family's here. They all were like, oh my God, we have to go and see. We have to, they think like Oxford and Cambridge Union, no, that's so prestigious. Like, we have to be there. So my fucking whole family's here, and I haven't even seen them yet. My dad traveled from Turkey. My mom flew in from LA. My brother and his fiance are going to be here tomorrow. I haven't even seen them yet. I came in and I insta started my stream. Let's get it started. Let's get it popping. We're obviously going to start by talking about South Korea and the South Korean president declaring martial law. Let me tell you something, okay? I was on the plane when the shit was popping and I thought it was hilarious. Good on them, dude. They're doing the most out there in South Korea. They got a lot going on for them. They got an incel president. Incel president has a wife. He's a big wife guy. Loses the parliament. Doesn't like that he lost the parliament, especially because now parliament is coming after his wife. He's a big wife guy. He has to do what he has to do. Now, let me tell you something. I'm no expert in Korean politics. I don't fully comprehend the system. I don't know the parties. I don't really get it, okay? But I will give you my basic understanding of Korean politics. I know a little bit of Korean history from the Korean War. What I do know is Neo-Confucianism and its devastating impact in Korean politics, in contemporary Korean politics, in contemporary Korean culture, and how it factors into gotcha games and the way that the Korean incel army has engaged a lot of Gamergate-style tactics. What I know is a couple things. One, Korea is a hyper-capitalist dystopia with a higher suicide rate than even Japan. Two, cost of living and shit is very unaffordable. Three, massive gender wars happening in Korea. Four, they have a parliamentary system, but they ended up, almost every single one of their leaders have been corrupt. They love doing corruption, and it's the funniest type of corruption usually. Not like the regular, oh, this chaebol runs the country and decided to like sue the state because there was a new Samsung TV coming out. You know, they wanted to make it a national holiday or something. Like, that stuff is regular. That happens all the time. But like the type of corruption that they also engage in is like they get their dumbass sons and daughters into school, and then their dumbass sons and daughters go to these like prestigious schools, but they also don't end up actually showing up to class or whatever. And that's like that's the big thing. Like, that is the big corruption. That shit is like taking people out in Korean society, where they like will get their dumbass children to go to some like sick school that they didn't deserve to go to, and then they don't actually end up attending the classes, and then they will like get high grades. Like, it's like truancy. Yeah, it's not. Sometimes it's cheating scandals, sometimes it's truancy scandals. It's pretty funny that like that is the major killer of all Korean politics. Or the president's in a cult. I mean, which president isn't in a cult? You know what I mean? There is that part too. But yeah, every single one of these guys, they just seemingly haven't been able to. My point is, Koreans can't catch a break, dude. These guys used to live in a military dictatorship. The military dictatorship turned into three chaebols in a trench coat. And now every single time they elect a new leader, they just get punished for doing corruption or being a fucking freak. And now here we are, the latest and greatest in that same saga.
I declare martial law to protect the Free Republic of Korea from the threat of North Korean communist forces, to eradicate the despicable pro-North Korean anti-state forces that are plundering the freedom and happiness of our people, and to protect the free constitutional order.
비상계엄을 선포합니다.
That's right. South Korea, big problem with communism. Everybody knows how big the problem with communism is. Understand that this is just like every fascist's rallying call. Every fascist rallying cry is like, oh, I'm here to, defeat the anti-democratic communist forces by doing martial law and killing a bunch of people. And like, if you know a little bit about Korean history, you know that that is exactly how they used to operate. And they would just like kill a shit ton, Jakarta method style. They would basically just kill a shit ton of people who were like trade unionists, anyone who was like anti-government in any meaningful fashion. They would just like murk them to be like, oh, you're a communist, you're a sympathizer. And America basically oversaw that and thought it was awesome. So really cool that South Korea's last president is trying to bring that back in a big way. Having said that, interestingly enough, the Korean trade union movements they're pretty strong. And Koreans also love to fucking party. They love to riot. They are very French in that regard. I suspect that there will be some labor actions that come out of this. So we'll see. But Koreans love a good protest. And they definitely have like some, it's weird. They have some semblance of labor militancy, but also at the same time, like work-life standards are still dog shit. Interesting country overall. No, there already is. There you go. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions will begin an indefinite general strike tomorrow, demanding an immediate resignation of President Goon. I'm with him. I think we need more wife guys in power. Like, I think what he did for his wife. And a lot of y'all don't understand that because you're incels. He's not. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was illegal to love your wife and defend her from corruption charges because she has expensive taste. Sorry, my bitch bad, okay? Sorry.
The television channel shows a popular chat show. The mood is as soft as the furnishings. Until the president breaks into the evening schedule and spoils it with a national address that shocks the nation.
친애하는 국민 여러분.
President Yoon declares martial law, putting the military in charge. He blames pro-North Korean opposition parties who make up the majority in parliament and who've been blocking his legislation, including a budget.
Yeah, his opposition parties are all North Korean in nature. I do find it really interesting how bad things are getting. I will say, it is an interesting predicament. It almost feels like neoliberalism on overdrive for the past fucking 3-4 decades now, without any sort of serious contender, ideological, on the global stage. We have arrived at this capitalism supercharged moment where there's a lot of spearheaded, there's a lot of movement in the direction of fascism. If you have been dominated by America, you're already relatively reactionary. You already have like sometimes fundamentalist leadership. And if you're in the sphere of influence of America, you slowly but surely have revitalized your nascent fascist movements. Meanwhile, of course, America is doing that too. Fascist South Korea is preferable on the border of China to the U.S. empire? Yes. That's not a stretch. That's just history. What you're describing is literally history. That is what happened. Like, people think Korea was always this like shining beacon, like the Japan of the 90s. It wasn't. Shit sucked. It was a military dictatorship, and America kept it that way because it suited its political purposes in the region. Something to remember.
Parliament in this building should now be suspended. But it's also the only body that can overrule the president and his martial law by voting against him. Cue a midnight dash for Parliament. First, the army. Heavily armed soldiers enter the back doors of the building. Others take a more direct route. And some need a little extra help. But opposition leaders have also summoned lawmakers and supporters to the National Assembly. This party boss...
Bro, the Korean incel guy is such a fucking loser, by the way. Like, truly remarkable, truly shocking to me. He was so bad at doing a coup. He couldn't even bring out the special military units fast enough. He ended up fucking it up so bad. Like, how do you fuck it up so bad? How do you do a coup? These like old ass motherfuckers can just jump over the barrier, and before you even protect the parliament, you allow these goddamn libtards to jump over the barrier and come in and vote against your coup. It makes no sense, dude. He got 100% disapproval rating. Like, that's crazy. Everybody was like, no, dog, your shit sucks. 190 votes. Motherfuckers climbed the barrier of the parliamentary wall so they could go in, and then their fucking nerd ass staffers were literally pushing back the special forces and stopping them from entering the parliament to push out any of these people, to push out the people. And then they took it to a goddamn vote. And honestly, liberalism won, okay? Turns out you can vote away fascism, it seems, at least so far. Anyway, we got a lot of crazy fucking footage. Like this lady who is a lawmaker who literally grabs the weapon. Like, this is like, dude, going for the service weapon of an officer type shit is kind of crazy. She's literally like, give me the gun, bitch. Guys, you misunderstand. Koreans don't have guns, so they don't know what it is. That's what it is. That's the problem. That's why they don't understand it's deadly to do that. This kind of stuff is so sick, but I'm always worried that I'm going to hype up some lady, and then a week later, I'm going to find out that she's like a fucking psycho. You know what I mean? Half the time, whenever you see stuff like this, you'll be like, oh, look at this massive protest. And then you find out they think it's illegal to even have gay thoughts or something. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying this lady's like that, but it happens quite frequently in international politics. She's the descendant of an independence activist against Japanese imperialism and graduated from Elha Women's University that led the impeachment of the former President Park Geun-hye. Okay, well, I dig that the grandpa was an independence activist and Japan calls him a terrorist. She is on Guoryang. She's part of the Democratic Party, which is known to be very centrist, but labeled as extreme leftism. Yeah, Korean politics is awesome. That's why I'm laughing. Like, the fucking... the goddamn incel president is like, yo, these guys are doing North Korean style communism here. They want to do Jusha. And the Jusha is like child tax credits. The Jusha is like, hey, why don't we actually not make it a 70-hour work week? I think we should keep it at the reasonable 67 it was at, sir. And then he's like, oh, that's the most communist thing I've ever heard in my life. Also, I'm fucking up the numbers, but it's not even a joke. That's literally what happened. Like, I'm exaggerating on the numbers, but like, that's what the president literally did. So that's not even a joke. They'd be like, can the unions get weekends off? They're like, this is the most extreme leftist position we've ever heard in our lives. What the fuck are you saying? It's, you want Jusha style self-reliant North Korean communism. We will not allow it. I mean, this is bad as fuck, dude. She's a bad bitch for this. This is crazy. Also, what is up with the North Korean Special Forces, man? What is up with the North Korean Special Forces? I mean, as much as I respect them for having trigger discipline and not like unleashing hell upon this civilian population, half of them are fucking congresspersons or whatever. I said North Korea, my bad. Yeah, it's just wishful thinking. Sorry. Yeah, South Korean Special Forces are just like, I've never seen people get pushed over so much with this much gear. That's crazy, though. That's crazy. She just went for it, dude. Respect. She went for the service weapon. I love that. I love that so much. That's Aura. Speaking of Aura, this is not the motherfucker that got stabbed in the neck, is it? Is this the guy who got stabbed on the neck like a week ago or some shit? Like it wasn't that long ago. This dude, not a week ago, but like he got stabbed in the neck like 2 months ago. And this motherfucker is already at it again. A year ago? God damn, time moves fast. I fucking thought it was like like a couple months ago. Okay, whatever. He got stabbed in the neck a year ago, and he's back to his old ways. Okay, look what this man does here. It's awesome.
Live streamed himself being chauffeured to Parliament before clambering over the gates.
Yeah, he didn't just live stream himself getting chauffeured to the Parliament. He live streamed himself breaking into the Parliament and jumping over the gate.
Inside.
There is nothing fucking funnier than that, dude. I love that. That's so awesome. And guess which platform they couldn't do any of that on? Twitch.tv, because Twitch Korea is now gone. Imagine the content that would be on Twitch right now if Twitch Korea still remained, dude.
MPs and journalists scrambled to get to the chamber. Outside the gates, the scuffles continue in a cloud of tear gas and a flash of cameras. Here, a member of parliament is seen grabbing a soldier's gun, shouting, "Are you not ashamed?" Others remember the last time martial law was imposed in this country, before South Korea shook off military dictatorship to become one of the most prosperous and vibrant democracies in Asia. And what happens in South Korea has...
Like, no disrespect. This is not like shitting on South Korea at all. I just don't think America has a vibrant democracy either. It is funny though when people are like, "Oh, you don't understand South Korea, this vibrant democracy." Like the only reason why they're saying that is so they can compare it to North Korea, which is bad. Like who the fuck in the Western world has their shit in order at this point? I'm serious. I'm not even kidding about this. Like we have fascists everywhere, dude. Motherfuckers are saying France. Oh yeah, it's real vibrant over there. Remember when Macron was like, "I am not going to follow the democratic wishes and precedent set forth by and I'm just going to refuse to fucking put anyone from the senior partner in the coalition that won in the previous election into a position of power." Yeah. Macron low-key did a centrist coup. Like he did it already in France. Oh, sucks.
Repercussions well beyond its borders. A short missile's flight away from Seoul is North Korea, where dictator Kim Jong-un rules his nuclear-armed dystopia with a constant threat of invasion of the South, now in political turmoil. There to stop the North from trying it on are 29,000 US troops in one of the biggest American bases overseas. They've been here since 1953, the end of the Korean War. What will happen to them after President Trump takes office? One of the many questions with regional implications. Back to tonight, back to Parliament. As the standoff continues, the opposition parliamentarians who've made it into the building vote against the martial law. The result is 100...
I also don't understand it. It's like, why do we have so many troops and so much money that we're spending overseas that we have no control? Like, when this motherfucker pulls this shit off, one phone call, dude. Hey, President Goon, let me tell you something, okay? Stand the fuck down, bitch. Fuck you mean you're doing martial law? Stand down. I got 29,000 brave U.S. military Marines right there, ready to fucking ready to let it rip. What the fuck is this shit?
90 to 0. The remaining 110 MPs who belong to the President's People's Party did not show up to vote. Many of them, by the way, were also against the imposition of martial law. In the dead of night, the soldiers are filmed returning to barracks. If the coup is indeed over, it lasted 2 hours and 48 minutes, half an hour longer than Parasite, Korea's Oscar-winning film, and almost as soon.
Oh, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. You can't be comparing it to Korean works, man. Respect, though.
Surreal. Well, let's take you live to Seoul, the South Korean capital, where we're joined by John Nielsen-Wright, who's head of the Japan and Korea's program at the Center for Geopolitics at Cambridge University. Welcome to the program, John Nielsen-Wright. Is it all over as far as you can tell?
It's too early to say, I'd say. I mean, it's reassuring to have seen the National Assembly vote so decisively to overturn the president's order. But we've had no clarification about the role of the military, and the president himself has been silent. The reassuring news is, of course, that the media continues to function. South Koreans are able to follow this story, but it is unquestionably a moment of, I think, acute tension. It should be noted that the leader of the president's party, the PPP, himself came out and said very decisively, this is unconstitutional. And there are demands for the president to resign or to be impeached and ultimately to be prosecuted.
I mean, you know the place well. Did this come out of the blue?
South Korean politics has always been very, very fractious, and it's got more fractious in recent years. And I think that's the clue to understanding why President Yoon has acted. I mean, he claimed that this is an attempt to...
That's an amazing analysis from Cambridge's very own Korea guy. Oh, South Korean politics is always fractious. Yeah, that's what I said. I can say that because I'm a fucking idiot. You are an academic. You can't just be like, oh, it's very complicated. Yeah, that's the way I analyze it because I don't know anything because I'm a fucking idiot. Oh, it's very fractious.
To deal with the threat from North Korea and its alignment with these progressive politicians. But the evidence for that is pretty much non-existent. President Yoon was facing pressure from a National Assembly that was wielding its legitimate democratic muscle to call for the impeachment of prosecutors who had been asked to investigate allegations of corruption, insider trading surrounding the president's wife, the First Lady. They decided not to proceed, and that was, I think, the spark, if you like, for the opposition politicians to demand that those prosecutors be...
I feel like I'm going crazy, but like, low-key, our politicians are so much cooler at doing crimes. Like, maybe the standard is so fucked up because, like, America basically legalized bribery a long time ago. So then, like, you truly have to do something extraordinary to get in trouble. But when I think about, like, you know, the past couple of years of Democrats caught in these, like, crazy affairs, these crazy scandals, like, the only thing that comes to mind that's, like, kind of silly is Eric Adams. And he's the mayor of New York, right? What did Eric Adams do? He got, you know, a bunch of free flights so that he could let the Turkish consulate building get away with not passing a fire inspection or just like refuse to say something on our Armenian Genocide Recognition Day or whatever, right? But then you got the Bob Menendezes who are, you know, opening up halal meats markets through their Egyptian partners and ensuring that this like one singular Egyptian American company has like a monopoly on halal meat distribution in the country, and he's getting paid in gold bars. And then you got, you know, Henry Cuellar, another similar situation with like Azerbaijan. I guess my point is, and then you look at Korean corruption and it's like, yeah, this dude's wife got like a nice fucking jacket. Okay. And then the prosecutors were like, you can't do that. It's illegal. And basically the president was like, how dare you do that to my wife? If you don't impeach these prosecutors, I am going to do martial law. And then did martial law because he was like, that's my sexy ass wife, dog. I'm a wife guy. You can't, if she that's my bitch. She's bad. Okay. She's a bad bitch. If she wants to have expensive clothes, she's going to get expensive clothes. How dare you go after her? And it's like, man, what the fuck? Like the offenses, it feels like, or what is considered inappropriate feels so strange to me always. It almost feels like Joe Biden violates American laws and international human rights. It almost feels like he does that regularly for Israel, but then lo and behold, God forbid, he fucking pardons his son. And then everybody gets mad. Yeah, you got like a bunch of known pedophiles in power, but then this is the type of shit that people get frustrated about.
Be impeached. Delays.
Anyway, I'm just saying, I got much respect for the wife guy, President Goon. I always thought he was like a straight up incel. And it turns out he's not just a straight up incel. You know what I mean? President Goon also has a wife and he loves his wife.
Budget approval, all of which had left the president feeling, I think, politically uninfluential and therefore cornered. And he's responded with this huge overreaction. History, I think, will judge him very harshly. But for now, we are in this standoff. And tomorrow, I expect we will see more protests by the public. South Koreans vote with their feet. And you remember back in 2016, the so-called candlelit protests against then President Park Geun-hye, South Koreans take their democratic rights very, very seriously.
And talking of that, I mean, the last time martial law was imposed was, I gather, more than half a century ago. Since then, South Korea has had this incredible transition to democracy, but also to amazing prosperity. It's the 10th richest country in the world, apparently. Of course, it has its soft power, the film Parasite, all that incredible K-pop music. So why has he done something that belongs to the dustbin of history? Why go so?
I love this guy's understanding of the world, bro. Like, no, this is Orientalism, for the record. This right here is Orientalism to a T. Like, you just reduce the country, okay? And the dynamics. Like, I joke about politics a lot, but at least it comes from a place of like somewhat understanding how human beings operate and recognizing that this isn't just a country where, their GDP is so good and they're making shit that my daughter watches, like K-pop. Why would he just throw that away? The soft power of Parasite and K-pop. How could the president just throw that away? The answer is he's a wife guy.
Well, I think, President Yoon is not a conventional politician by any means, as this action so clearly demonstrates. His career was in the law. Ironically, he was a special prosecutor appointed by the previous president, Moon Jae-in, to, if you like, clear up political corruption. The irony is, therefore, that he's now being charged with the very same type of offences that he was responsible for investigating before. Special prosecutors, however, have often been seen as something of a law unto themselves. And that reflects, if you like, what I would describe as Yoon's almost authoritarian temperament, which has inclined him to take this, I think, hugely mistaken step in calling for martial law. In all of this, of course, other countries look on with, I think, a sense of anxiety, and it remains to be seen how he is going to dig himself out of this impossible position.
Indeed, and what the implications are for the rest of the region.
John
Nielsen Wright in Seoul tonight. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the program. Well, the Biden administration says it is watching the developments in South Korea with great concern and very closely indeed. Let's bring in our Washington correspondent, Siobhan Kennedy, who's at the State Department. Siobhan, what are they saying over there?
Well, I have just stepped outside of the press conference here at the State Department, and South Korea was the main line of questioning. The spokesperson there said that the US was watching what was happening, the events, with grave concern. He said that the hope and the expectation is that any political disputes will be resolved peacefully and within the rule of law. He gave no further details, but he did reiterate that all-important fact that the US was not given any notice about what was to happen in South Korea.
Damn, I can't believe that the president wasn't like, hey, by the way, I'm just going to do a coup.
Earlier. Let's hear a clip from him now.
We were not notified of President Yoon's announcement in advance. Ultimately, at the crux of this is not, President Biden, President Yoon, these two specific governments. What this is about is the broader strategic relationship and the broader strategic partnership that we have with the Republic of Korea. And that alliance, as I said, is ironclad.
Well, this will no doubt be embarrassing for President Biden. He considers President Yoon to be a key strategic ally.
What remains? I'm being so for real right now. What is there left? What hasn't Biden fucked up? The Syrian civil war is back. Israel is still bombing Lebanon. Israel's doing a genocide in Gaza. Russia is pummeling Ukraine. I just don't understand. Biden was like, oh, we did Finland. All of our partners are on fire. I'm just waiting, dude. The Philippines are going to come out swinging with something crazy. We got 40 more days left? I can't wait for the fucking Pinoy gang to come out and be like, nah, no, hold up. We still got some time.
I was asked earlier in Angola for any comment on what was going on. He said he didn't have any, but that he was being briefed on the situation. But make no mistake.
Yep. To answer the question on everyone's minds, Joe Biden does not have a doctorate in foreign affairs. He's just that fucking good.
What happens in South Korea really matters to the US. The two have a key strategic, economic and military ties. The Pentagon earlier confirming to us that it has 5 military bases in South Korea, housing some 28,500 troops. So these not just there, of course, to protect South Korea from any advances from the north, but also to ward against any...
I love British people. Pentagon. That's not how you say that, man. Fuck you mean Pentagon? That's a whole different name. British people be like Hezbollah. Hezbollah. That's what they say. It's like you put an R there. There's no R.
Threats from China in the region. So what is happening in South Korea really does matter to the people here in this building. And on that, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, we're told, is urgently seeking to speak to his counterparts today as soon as possible.
Siobhan, thanks very much indeed. Well, Dr. Sojin Lim is a reader in Asia-Pacific Studies at the University of Central Lancashire and an expert on both Koreas. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. It's a bit odd, isn't it, that the US, with almost 29,000 troops based in South Korea, providing these security guarantees, the close friendship, apparently, as we just heard from Siobhan, between both Presidents Biden and Yoon, that they had no idea that
They keep bringing up the 29,000 troops. They brought it up like 8 times.
he was going to do this.
Oh, I think no one would have had this, the idea that he's going to do this, even in South Korea. And also the presidential office was very quiet. And the President Yoon didn't even inform the head of the National Assembly. So he, as the previous the interviewee mentioned, that himself from the background in law, but totally ignored the process and the procedure against the law. So this was really came out of blue, and that tells us that he was really in the place, the position that needed to find the radical route, and this was really miscalculated in a way.
What was this then? An extreme example of political impulsivity and frustration?
Yes, so actually, yes, he was frustrated in a way because of the recent scandal with his own wife, the First Lady, and the top level of the politicians in South Korea. It has been a while that the population in South Korea gathered and then protested and then demanded impeachment already. And if we see the statements to the last night in South Korea, the articles, and it clearly shows that he was frustrated with the recent demand by the population and public, and also he was frustrated with the recent conflict between the government and the medical members in the society. So all this tells us that he really wanted to solve out the problem with this martial law, but obviously it doesn't look like it worked out well.
South Korea has a bit of a tradition of locking up its ex-presidents. Do you think that that's where he's going to end up now? In jail?
True.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, Mr. Parasite does know that at least, so that's good. I mean, yeah, this motherfucker's probably going to jail, right? I feel like you can't be a South Korean president and not go to jail. Like, it's low-key part of the job. If you run for higher office in South Korea, you have to do cheating scandals, and you have to and you have to do some corruption, and then they catch you, and then they throw you in jail for like 6 years. But then you're fine. But then you're fine. You can totally come back after that. You can still run a company. If you're sitting on a board, you can run a board and sit on it while you're in prison.
Said that's true. Actually, I was talking about with my colleagues about that. Now another president will end up in prison. So the only president who didn't end up in prison would be the previous president who negotiated with the previous government. So this is very unfortunate, but it looks like he has no choice, but then will be impeached and then will prison because obviously he violated the law.
So North Korea, of course, just on the other side of the demilitarized zone, is watching this very closely. We know that recently the North Koreans wanted to sever any sort of physical links with South Korea, which alarmed a lot of people that they were thinking of an invasion at some stage and not a unification. What are the repercussions of this for this very explosive peninsula?
So even though there was this conflict escalation...
The Western world's like, all of our enemies are laughing at us, man. Yo, why can't we figure this shit out? China laughing at us. Kim Jong-un laughing at us. They're farting on us, bro. They're out there farting on us. The Western world is so funny, especially America. where it's like they've destroyed all of their enemies, like all of their significant enemies they've destroyed. And this last 3-decade process has just been like running victory laps and letting capitalism thrive so much that it, you know, inevitably heightens the contradictions and makes it untenable, unsustainable. Our final boss is ourselves. The amount of damage that we do to ourselves, none of our enemies could do to us.
And that was in narratives, and the Korea Peninsula has been there as a buffer zone between the power game between US and China. And North Korea, we actually didn't think that it will invade the South Korea, but it will more try to negotiate with the US. And now having the President Trump as a new president in the United States, the North Korea wants to provocate more so that it can has the attention, and South Korea had to deal with it. But now the President Yoon expected that, you know, the President Trump will be very different from the Biden administration, and that also looked like worked as a.
I'm a one-stater, dude. I'm a one-stater always. We got too many fucking states. Time to smush them together. Put America, Canada, and Mexico into one big state. Former USSR territory, one big state. No more balkanization. I'm a reverse balkanizer. Canada, United States of America, and Mexico make cum. C-U-M. Cum. And the same. No more North Korea, South Korea. No more North Dakota, South Dakota either. Okay? Just Korea. One Korea. Unified. Strong. You leave that shit to me, that's what I would do. No more Israel, Palestine, two-state solution. One state. Tighten it up. Okay? Enough back and forth. Enough fighting. No more fighting. My goal is to tie these countries together slowly but surely until they're all just one big state, you know? That's what I want. One world government. That's such a funny thing that Republicans get mad at, or like conspiracy theories get mad at, like, what do you mean? You want one world government? It's like, bitch, you haven't left your neighborhood. Like, what do you mean? What difference does it make? Multiple world government, one world government, what difference does it make to you? You live in Alabama. You have never left your hometown. What, you think if they're like, there's a lot of options for you out there? You were going to fucking move. If America sucks, you're going to go to a different government. Is that what you're going to do? No. You can't even move to a different state. You think the cities are scary. The fuck difference does it make if there's a one world government or not? You're a fucking peon. Shut up. Oh, I can't believe it. You want to do one world government. You want to institute homosexual socialist order. It's like, yeah, dude, it's really going to change your life. There already is a one world government. It's called capitalism, and you seemingly think it's sweet. Shut the fuck up. Lots of it is rooted in the Christian end times paranoia. I know, but like the end times are low-key kind of here, and these guys don't recognize it.
That frustrated Yoon Suk-yeol because he may need to change his direction completely differently from what he has imposed at the moment.
Right. In one word, is South Korean democracy safe tonight, yes or no?
South Korean democracy, we are still developing, I think. Okay. And as a person who has lived outside of Korea, I think
that's fair of her to say. I think South Korea has a long way to go, and so does America, by the way. Don't let any dumb fucking Amerifat ever tell you that that is not the case, okay? Americans love to think like, oh, dude, we got this shit locked down, okay? Our shit is so sweet. Oh, we are a beacon. We're a champion of democracy. It's like, oh, yeah, dude? Oh, yeah? How about them abortion rights in like half the fucking country? Champion of democracy. We're a shining beacon of morality and democracy. No, man, our shit sucks, okay? So this isn't me just saying that about like South Korea and being like, oh, those guys over there, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't have democracy like us. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying we don't have that shit either, okay?
Is seeing the kind of catalytic moment so that there will be a further development and the population will realize that, you know, we can achieve that in a way that in this moment.
A work in progress now, but Seo Jin Lim, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Okay, let's bring you an update on our top news story tonight. South Korea's president says he will move to lift the martial law declaration he imposed just a few hours ago after Parliament voted against the measure. Yoon Suk-yeol says the martial law command forces have now withdrawn and a cabinet meeting.
Pussy. Bro, you ain't a real wife guy, okay? I take it back. This motherfucker is not a real one, dude. 2 hours. And immediately they were like, no, stand down, sir. Stand down. Where is the decorum? We were able to reach the perfect number of parliamentary votes to tell you that you must stand down. He was like, ugh, I guess. Like, why did you do this to begin with? What the fuck was he thinking? I actually don't understand what he was thinking. Like, if you were going to get owned by quorum, you just never had your heart in it at all. Like, you had no investment. You had no investment in this. Like, I feel like he didn't even get his party on board. He didn't get the military on board. You know what I mean? He didn't get nobody on board. He was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this, like, on a whim. Wouldn't it be funny? He's like, wouldn't it be funny if I just did this? Just a light dictatorship. I guess the point is, the important lesson to learn here is, if your heart is not in it, you shouldn't go with it, you know? If you're going to be bold, you have to abide by the Live Moss lifestyle, you know? You can't just half measure it. You can't be like, oh, just let's do a little bit. Let's do a little bit of a coup, like a baby coup. As a matter of fact, martial law is supposed to come after a failed coup. That's what you're supposed to do. Let me tell you, you're supposed to, like, if I'm the KCIA, the Korean CIA, okay? If I'm this guy, I'm going to the KCIA. And I'm doing this, like, you know, I'm finding like I don't know, like a trade unionist group or something. I'm infiltrating it. And then you know, I'm doing like a light terror attack, right? Like a self-inflicted wound. And then I'm using the panic and disorder caused by that to then implement martial law in order to defend the sanctity of the Korean institutions and the Korean democracy. You can't just fucking randomly be like, oh, you guys wanted to come after my wife. Well, let me tell you, you've upset the wrong wife guy today. It's martial law time. Like, you can't do that. You have to have like some kind of fucking false flag operation to justify martial law to centralize power like this. Really, really fucking dumb. Really dumb move from this guy.
Will be held as soon as possible.
All right. We're not done with the Korean story. Are you giving him tips? Yeah. So the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions will begin an indefinite general strike tomorrow, demanding his immediate resignation. So now they're going to punish him. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions said, emergency Central Executive Committee meeting just ended. The KCTU will hold a Central Executive Committee press conference at 8 on December 4th. And beginning with this, will commence an indefinite general strike until Yoon Suk-yeol regime steps down. KCTU members will stop work in accordance with the general strike directive and carry out nationwide emergency strike. You can't be disrupting Samsung, dude. You can't. You fucked up. President Goon, you fucked up. If I can't get my new Samsung super slim LED 4K Ultra HD TV in time for American Christmas shopping, it's over for you. They're going to hang this man. Members in the capital region shall gather at Seoul. I don't know how to say that word. Gongwamun Square at 9 on December 4th. But yeah, he declared martial law. First declaration of martial law since 1979, which was followed by Gwanlu uprising in the following year. President Yoon ordered a complete shutdown of the National Assembly, but he failed to do so. Opposition Democratic Party urgently summoned its members to the National Assembly. The speaker was headed to the National Assembly building. It was closed off by the police. They still went in. The ruling party also called for his representatives for an emergency caucus, and its leader criticizing the declaration of martial law as inappropriate. President Yoon Suk-yeol of South Korea declared martial law in the emergency briefing. Yoon said it was made to prevent the anti-state forces, specifically citing the opposition party and its followers as pro-North Korean leftist groups. Under the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, the president has the authority to declare martial law and prescribe its scope, rights, procedures, and duties of martial law commander through the Martial Law Act. First martial law was declared on October 21st, 1948. It was following the Yosu Sunshan incident. Since then, it has been misused as a means to seize and maintain power by dictatorial regimes. There were 12 emergency martial law declarations from 1948 to 1979, all under the dictatorship. Today, Yoon declared the country's 13th. According to the martial law decree, all political activities are strictly prohibited and media and publications will be controlled. However, the Korean population had a very different attitude about it, and they immediately took to the fucking streets. And they went to the parliament. All the opposition parties were able to sneak into the parliament with enough numbers to actually get, the sufficient number of seats. Then they voted against it. They voted to, stop the martial law. The National Assembly passed the resolution request to lift the martial law with a unanimous approval from all 190 registered members. Although the National Assembly passed the resolution demanding the lifting of martial law, the presidential office maintained its silence. They were restricting press access. When the National Assembly demands lifting the martial law with the approval of a majority of its attending members, the president must lift it immediately. However, the situation became problematic since the presidential office was silent. Democratic Party revealed military planned to arrest Assembly Speaker and party leaders under martial law, reviewing possible insurrection charges. But the martial law was lifted, and President Yoon backed down. What do you do after this? Do you say bygones be bygones? Do you just say, my bad? Do you just say, I'm a silly goof? I was just goofing. Chill. It's just memes, bro. In order to fully understand this, we have to go back to 720 AD. We have to go back to Neo-Confucianism. The Korean method of Confucianism had a more rigorous approach to the hierarchical structure of Confucianism. And we have to talk about the Han River and how American forces, American Navy forced Korea into trade. President Yoon announced that he will approve the lifting of martial law as soon as the cabinet meeting reaches a quorum. That means there's still one more procedural step. I think it's really funny that there's this process-focused approach. But yeah, if you want to understand, presidents of South Korea, 48 to 60, overthrown. 60 to 62, Young Bosan, overthrown. Park Chung-hee, assassinated, 1962 to 1979. Choi Kyu-ha, removed by military coup in the 80s. Chun Do-hwan, 81 to 88, sentenced to death after his presidency. It's fucking awesome. It's like, if you want to be president of Korea, you will get either killed or you will actually have to spend a decent amount of your life in prison. But there is something, like I said, very funny about like being so rules-based and such a norms head that you're like, oh no, I tried to do a military coup, but they got me. They got me how? By getting in the room and voting. No. They did it. They did the thing. It feels stupid. Ro Tai-woo sentenced to 22 years in prison after his presidency. Imprisoned during the term of President number 3 as president, secured convictions against 2 of his predecessors. Imprisoned under President number 3 and sentenced to death under President number 5, later pardoned. Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Roh Moo-hyun, impeached, later overturned by Constitutional Court, investigated for corruption after his term and committed suicide. Lee Myung-bak, 2008 to 2013, arrested for corruption after his presidency, sentenced to 15 years in prison. Park Geun-hye, impeached and arrested for corruption, sentenced to 24 years in prison. Except for my goat, Moon Jae-in. That's the one guy. That's the one guy that went in and went out. Okay? He's the G.
Is often presented by Western media as a sort of democratic ideal. It's been one of the fastest growing economies.
Yeah, democratic ideal, all right. Yeah, it is. It is a democratic ideal. New Jeans got told 2 weeks ago by the government that K-pop idols are not workers. The owner of Hybe, who New Jeans was signed to, was also besties with President Yoon. Yeah. technically, it is a democratic ideal. It is a fantastic achievement as a liberal democracy to get to this point. The problem is, one must ask the question, why China doesn't get the same level of coverage by America? Like Chinese living conditions and Chinese living standards. Also, there's some issues there still. But in comparison to where China was, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, not only is their economy more prosperous, but also the living standards have dramatically improved. You can't say the same about South Korea. South Korea's GDP has exploded, but the average living conditions have not gotten tremendously better. Some issues, generous. No, there's always going to be issues, bro. There's issues in America. What do you mean? I'm not saying that like a state is going to be devoid of any sort of problems. Okay? Of course, there's still going to be issues.
In history, with the GDP per capita today higher than many countries in Europe, and it became the envy of the democratic world during the pandemic, when its rapid and effective testing system allowed it to escape the first wave without restrictive.
By the way, once again, Korean restrictions were seen as good, other countries not so good.
Lockdowns. However, inside South Korea, the perception is quite different. The two main parties have been beset by scandal and infighting, and incumbent President Yoon Suk-yeol has one of the lowest approval ratings in the world. So in this video, we're going to have a look at South Korea's economic miracle, how it became a democracy, and what's gone wrong recently. So let's start with a bit of context, because the story of South Korea's post-war development is really quite remarkable. In the 50s, after the Korean War, South Korea was appallingly poor. The war had devastated its economy.
All right, bro, fucking chill. Damn, he's just owning him pretty hard. It was disgusting. It was horrifying to live in. Appallingly poor. Jesus, Lord mercy, dude.
And GDP per capita was about $1,000, making it the poorest country in the region. South Korea had a brief flirtation with democracy in 1960, but in 1961, the government was overthrown by a military coup led by General Park Chung-hee. Park was undeniably a bit of an autocrat, imprisoning dissenters while banning everything from certain types of clothing to certain types of music. But he wasn't necessarily anti-democratic. Instead, he argued that democracy only really worked with a functioning economy. And, well, to be fair to him, Park was undeniably good at managing South Korea's economy. In part inspired by Germany's impressive post-war growth, known as the Miracle on the Rhine, Park set up a manufacturing and export-led economic system, where heavy industries like petrochemicals, steel and shipbuilding were actively supported by the government. In part because South Korea's super cheap labour costs kept South Korean exports competitive, the South Korean economy started to grow at about 7% a year in the early 60s. Park also began repairing relations with Japan, culminating in a normalization treaty in
It's just crazy because, like, you even brought up Germany post-war economy, and it's, like, insane to me not to bring up America in any of these conversations. I feel like if you do not mention American involvement in this, you are basically leaving out a ginormous chunk of how this development occurred, why it occurred the way it did, and what was in favor of the larger party's interests. Very odd. It's very odd to approach history like this.
1965 and supported America during the Vietnam War, who returned the favor by sending hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign aid to South Korea. The Americans successfully pressured Park into holding elections in 1963 by threatening to withdraw aid after Park announced his intention to continue with military.
Oh, so America's intervention only came at that point. The partitioning of Korea is also an American invention. America and the USSR, but certainly an American invention. Not mentioning America's involvement up to that point, and to only mention America's involvement as like a tit for tat because of South Korea's voluntary aid in the also unjustifiable occupation, invasion, and death and destruction, genocide of Vietnamese population. That's when America got involved. That's just lying by omission. Oh, only then did we urge South Korea to have democratic elections. It's crazy. Every step of the way up until this moment, America was involved directly. Also, simultaneously talking about like these brutal military regimes as though they were simply somewhat authoritarian is also like you never get that kind of coverage from like Stalin, for example. And I wouldn't even fucking talk about Stalin like that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be like, oh, he was like somewhat of an authoritarian.
Rule for another 4 years. But Park won the election anyway. Under Park's stewardship, the South Korean economy continued its rapid growth for the next 15 years or so, growing at an average rate of about 10% until 1980, and Park was re-elected in 1967 and 1971. South Korea's GDP per capita essentially quadrupled between 1960 and 1980, and commentators started talking about the miracle on the Han to describe South Korea. Park was assassinated in 1979, but successive South Korean governments continued his export-led economic program, and South Korea continued to grow rapidly, reaching a GDP per capita of around $17,000 by the end of the 20th century. What makes South Korea's economic story even more impressive is that it avoided the so-called middle-income trap. Essentially, many developing countries have been able to stimulate rapid economic growth by focusing on manufacturing and exports, but they often get stuck at a GDP per capita of about $15,000. Because as wages rise, their exports get less competitive and they struggle to develop their high-value industries. South Korea was able to maintain its rapid growth into the 21st century by nurturing its technology sector and reorienting its manufacturing sector towards more advanced manufacturers like electronics and semiconductors. Today, South Korea has a GDP per capita of nearly $34,000, making it one of the wealthiest countries not just in the region, but in the world. For context, that's higher than Spain and Italy, and only a bit lower than France. As Park predicted, economic development eventually paved the way for democracy, and South Korea became what we might describe as a proper democracy in 1988, after massive pro-democracy protests forced the government to move away from the de facto one-party system. A new two-party system quickly emerged, dominated by the Liberal Democratic Party of Korea, or DPK, and the Conservative People Power Party, or PPP. While this new system worked for a while, in the past few years, ordinary South Koreans have become increasingly disillusioned with both parties. Since about 2016, South Korea's political class has been beset.
Wait, I don't understand. Why are they disillusioned if more prosperity and a higher GDP per capita would yield the bounties of liberal democracy? How come these South Koreans are so entitled and so mad? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. Why are they so ungrateful? Also, the idea that like the military dictatorship, like the objectively fascist military dictatorship of South Korea, was bountiful and allowed South Korea to prosper so they could like magically get democracy after reaching a certain point is, you know, kind of ridiculous. Whether run by a military dictatorship or run by a theoretical democracy, South Korean industry was, you know, it's still dominated by the same groups of people, the same families.
Stream of controversies, often related to their overly friendly links to South Korea's corporate dynasties. There was some hope that last year's election of the PPP's Yoon Suk-yeol, a former prosecutor general, would mark a turning point, but this hasn't happened. Yoon has been a divisive president, picking fights with not just the opposition, but also with factions within his own party. Despite promising big tent government, Yoon has marginalised other figures within his party and refused to cooperate with the DPK, who have a majority in South Korea's legislative chamber. The opposition have blocked Yoon's proposed labour and education reforms, and Yoon has responded by vetoing basically any big bill that the opposition gets through the legislature. The two sides have also clashed over Yoon's pro-America foreign policy, which critics claim is escalating geopolitical tensions and sacrificing South Korea's interests. The two parties now spend most of the time fighting each other. Earlier this year, Yoon began investigations into corruption allegations surrounding the DPK's leader and his connections to a scandal-ridden development project and illegal cash remittances to North Korea. And in retaliation, the DPK called for investigations into Yoon's wife, who hit the headlines last year for allegedly plagiarizing some of her academic work and manipulating stock prices.
Fucking nerd country, bro. I swear to God. Yo, I get why he's a wife guy, though. Like, low key. I mean, that's crazy. This is like the hotness disparity. I've never seen hotness disparity like this outside of Eastern European nations. This is some Russian ass bullshit right here. Okay. This is like the most Russian ass hotness disparity I've ever seen. I did not know Korea operated like that. This is straight up like, you know, the classic Eastern European, like the most ogreish looking man with like the sexiest wife. And he treats her like shit.
The parties took things up a notch last week when the DPK-controlled legislature passed a motion urging Yoon to sack his prime minister for incompetence, which Yoon ignored, and the government approved an arrest warrant for the DPK leader. This infighting and partisan deadlock has prevented the government from actually addressing the various crises affecting South Korea, in part because South Korea has the lowest fertility rate in the world. Its economy has slowed and public finances are showing signs of strain. There are echoes of what happened to Japan in the 90s. Houses are unaffordably expensive, having doubled in price since 2008, and household debt is now over 100% of GDP, compared with 58% in Germany and 79% in America. South Korea is also suffering from a youth unemployment crisis, especially amongst graduates, and in 2020, the IMF warned that South Korea was one crisis away from a Japan-style recession. Unsurprisingly, South Koreans aren't happy. Yoon has one of the lowest approval ratings in the world, and both the government and opposition have approval ratings below 35%. Unfortunately for South Koreans, this partisan deadlock shows no sign of abating, and ordinary voters are becoming increasingly apathetic towards their democracy and its two-party duopoly. Across the developed world, many establishment parties are struggling to deal with the economic challenges. But in South Korea, the problem is particularly acute because voters don't really have any alternatives. Things are expected to change with a story like this, so make sure you stay on top of it.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, this was a year ago. And by God, did things change. Yeah, they went from a one-party autocracy to a two-party duopoly. The point is, it doesn't matter. One-party autocracy, two-party duopoly, it doesn't fucking matter. As long as the people's wishes are being addressed, the people's material conditions are being improved, then it's fine. They don't give a shit, and they're happy. Except this right here is why they should be happy.
One of your favorite songs, American Pie.
When I was going to school, it was one of my favorite songs.
Well, we wanted to hear you sing it.
It's been a while, but...
Come on, man. You got to give old Korean uncle a microphone. He's going to sing, okay? He's going to sing. It's catnip. It's like Austin.
A long, long time ago. Music used to make me smile. Now I really have my chance that I could make those people dance. Maybe they'd be happy for a while. February made me shiver. Really paper I deliver. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't have one more step. I can't remember if I tried. Where the valleys willow bright, some sing touch me deep inside. The day the music died. I understand that you like the guitar as well. The fellow who wrote that song is American Pie. So he wanted you to have his signed guitar.
This is pretty funny. The whole internet loves President Yoon, a lovely Korean politician that sings American Pie. 5 seconds later, we regret to inform you that President Yoon has abolished the Ministry of Women's Rights. 1 year later, we regret to inform you, Yoon has declared martial law and ended democracy in South Korea. Civilians stopping a military vehicle? Oh, that's sick. They stopped armored vehicles. Oh, this was funny too. When the soldiers were coming up to the parliament building, one of the guys just redirects him. He just flips him, dude. This is amazing. He just goes, nope. Motherfucker didn't even put his phone down, dude. He literally has a phone in one hand. He just went, whoop. Yeah, get rotated, idiot. And then the old man comes in and is like, no, stop. Dude, that's awesome. Donald Trump popped off about hostage releases in Gaza. Let's take a look.
If the Israeli hostages are not released by the time he takes office in January. Now, it's not clear what he means by that threat. On Saturday, Hamas released a propaganda video of an American-Israeli soldier, Eden Alexander's his name. He's been held there since the October 7th massacre. Deborah Pata shows us a new strategy by the hostages' families in Israel.
They have tried shouting, pleading, anger. Nothing has worked. They have lost their words. So now they have gone quiet.
The protesters here hope that their silence will speak more powerfully than any words. But the message remains the same in home now.
Dressed in white, young and old, united in anguish. This is where their loved ones are, held captive in Gaza. Everyone is worried that time is running out to save them, as it did for Nofar Bushtaf's brother Yogev.
He should be alive and here with us today.
Many protesters here believe Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is deliberately prolonging the war to avoid his upcoming corruption trial.
We are all slaves of his...
I mean, that is what's going on. That's like part of it, yes. I'm glad that the media can only frame it from the perspective of like Israeli hostage families openly recognizing the truth and yelling about it. But this is no longer a matter of speculation. It's just the truth. Yes, of course they're calling for a ceasefire. Yes, they have been. And these are not, I mean, this is something that I talked about 3 months ago. It's something that I talked about even before 3 months ago. It's just the thing that is happening.
Private interest.
I think Israeli government doesn't want to, have this deal.
This is not Jewish. This is not Israeli.
And it's not right, says Herut Nimrodi, who feels her son Tamir has been abandoned.
It's very hard for me to remember his voice, his laughter. Things are starting to fade away, and it's horrifying.
And so she seeks solace in the power of this sisterhood. Together, they weep and softly sing. They are daughters, sisters, wives, and most of all, they are mothers.
There are still 101 hostages in Gaza. There is a new deal on the table in Cairo in another push to end the war and bring those still alive back home and the bodies of those killed for burial.
Also, Donald Trump was like, there will be hell to pay. So Hamas came out with a statement. New statement from Hamas by way of Jeremy Scahill of Drop Site News. Hamas responds to Trump threat that there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East if the Israeli hostages are not released before Trump's inauguration. Statement from Bassem Naim of Hamas's Politburo. 1. Since the beginning of this genocide, Hamas has publicly announced and been active in seeking a permanent ceasefire to the end of the Israeli aggression against our people, a deal which would have included a full prisoners exchange. Number 2. However, Netanyahu has sabotaged all these attempts. At many times, we were extremely close to signing on a deal. But due to his savage actions and decisions, the deals broke down. Therefore, Hamas understands that Trump's message is actually directed first towards Netanyahu and his government. They need to end their evil game by using negotiations as a cover for their personal, political, ideological interests. Yeah, I don't think Trump is saying this to Netanyahu. I'm gonna keep it $1.50. I think he's saying he's gonna increase the faucet of genocide. Not that it matters, because you're already in the throes of genocide. At that point, it's like they're doing, it's kind of the maximalist position, right? Hamas is committed to immediately implementing the Security Council Resolution 2735 and the deal struck on July 2nd, 2024. We are looking forward to the daytime seeing an end of this genocide against our people, their free return back to their homes all over the Gaza Strip, and prisoners from both sides freed and enjoying living amongst their families again. Our people are eager to secure a better future for their children, full of hope, dignity, and prosperity. Jeremy says, a couple thoughts. Trump's bombastic threats to unleash some untold horror if the Israelis and U.S. captives are not released occurs as ceasefire talks have resumed. This is important to note. I think Trump wants to take credit for it if there is potentially a ceasefire even before the inauguration. Hamas is not going to do something or tremble in fear because of Trump's threats to future action. The timing does indicate Trump is looped in on the potential deal being negotiated and wants to set himself up to take credit for any success in the release of the hostages. It is also true that Netanyahu has repeatedly sabotaged deals that would have seen the release of the Israeli and U.S. captives held in Gaza. Many hostages have died as a result of Israeli attacks and a total refusal to make a deal to secure their release. The only difference is if Israel is the party that is not corresponding and Israel is the party that is routinely fucking up the hostage negotiations, and Benjamin Netanyahu feels comfortable with Donald Trump and feels like Donald Trump will have his back if there's any sort of like internal political persecution, or the prosecution of Benjamin Netanyahu continues for corruption, and Donald Trump gives Benjamin Netanyahu assurances that he will protect his political career and will ensure that he is not prosecuted, then he might be more responsive to a ceasefire negotiation, especially if he thinks that Donald Trump will most likely, backed by Miriam Adelson, allow the permanent annexation and occupation of at least North Gaza. So I think that is the only way that a ceasefire is implemented. Benjamin Netanyahu does whatever he wants under Biden, and now that he got his wishes and Trump is president, he still gets to do whatever he wants, and now he gets to avoid potentially some political persecution. Since your debate might not come out for another 2 weeks, this is a previous speech you were following in Oxford. This is Susan Abdul Hawa, who this was her remarks at Oxford Union debate. Here is pro-Israel journalist Yosef Haddad kicked out of the Oxford Union debate. Oxford Union. Anti-Semitism is alive and well at Oxford Union. They kicked Yosef Haddad out. So I'm in London. Many of you are asking over and over again, why are you in London? It's because I'm going to Cambridge Union and Oxford Union. While the setting is supposed to be for debates and whatnot, my situation is a little bit different. They wanted me to give a speech, which I have not written. I went on a 9-hour, 10-hour flight, beast mode, came to England, immediately started streaming at the same time that I always stream, Los Angelino time, also beast mode. And weirdly enough, I'm actually fucking insanely tired. Even though I slept on the flight, I'm still fucking tired. Dismantle AUKUS while you're there. Dude, Dude, I'm here to fucking finish Five Eyes. Okay? You caught me. I'm here to end Five Eyes. I'm here to defeat NATO. I'm here to defeat NATO. And I'm here to defeat Five Eyes. And I'm here to defeat AUKUS. Okay? That's why I came to England. Yeah. It's done. It's over. No more AUKUS. No more Five Eyes. No more NATO. It's over. American imperialism will not stand another day.
Oxford University, the Oxford Debating Society, is meant to be, an august organization, a bastion of free speech, democracy, enlightened thought, but it was hijacked by jihadists, quite simply.
Oh, that's amazing. Oxford University's Union Debate Society is supposed to be an august institution where free speech prospers and thrives. And yet they've used that free speech in a way that I disagree, which means that they're jihadists and must be culled. It's great. It's awesome. It's awesome to just be like, yeah, this is a free speech institution, and I hate the kinds of speech that they're doing, so they shouldn't do that any longer. Yeah, I didn't realize free speech meant only the speech you appreciate and enjoy. And no matter how truthful something might be, if it hurts your feelings, then it should not actually happen.
I still think it was the right thing to do to go there to debate, because I don't think they were necessarily debating their opponents or those in the crowd, those that were cheering essentially for the murderers, butchers and rapists of Hamas, but for everyone else that was watching them, and to expose those people that do reject Israel's right to exist, that do cheer on the crimes of groups like Hamas under the guise of some kind of enlightened thought of free speech. So I think they were right to do it, and I certainly applaud them for doing so.
Unbelievable to think that this is the level of debate, how things descend into chaos at an institution like Oxford. You've just come back, Hasan, from Canada, addressing the Canadian Parliament. Concerns, of course, about anti-Semitism, the uptick around the globe since the 7th of October. Tell us more.
It was a surreal experience. As I was actually packing to go to Canada, my wife had asked me, are you going to have security? And I thought for a second, what is she talking about? I'm literally flying in from a war zone, but at the same time, I was as if flying into another war zone. And I was there in Montreal during those riots.
Jewish Insider is doing another hit piece on me after the last one got no motion. This time, they're mad that I didn't call the football hooligan fights that occurred in Amsterdam a pogrom. And it's like, just give it up, dude. What's happening, man? Why are you still hitting that? Why are you still just like, that's really fucking anti-Semitic that you don't consider like the Tel Aviv Maccabi football hooligans to be victims of a Kristallnacht style pogrom? Like, who believes this? Why are you still running with this narrative? Like, what are you doing? This man said there are riots occurring in Montreal. It's a real war zone. I'm actually leaving Tel Aviv, a war zone, to go to Montreal. And I need security because that's the real war zone. First of all, Tel Aviv, not exactly a war zone, okay? It's Gaza, where the genocide is occurring, not in Tel Aviv. So calm down. And secondly, the notion that you're going to go to another like developed Western nation, and it's a fucking war zone because people are just like looking out to... Like the failed Dagestani pogrom that occurred in the beginning of October of 2023 when they were like looking for Jewish people in the fucking in the engine of a plane or whatever. Like they're making it seem like that's what's happening in Montreal. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And they were just harrowing. It was it's hard not to draw parallels to what happened in Amsterdam. Right. And when I spoke to leaders from all levels of...
Like, why are we acting like Jews don't exist in these places, man? What the fuck? Amsterdam and Pogrom Trial. It's so funny when people are like, you don't understand. You understand the fear I feel in my heart when I'm in the Upper East Side of New York? Positively. I mean, Harlem has turned into Hamas Harlem. It's everywhere. It's like, come on, dude. Come on. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's keep going.
The political echelon. I told them unless corrective action is taken, there will be a repeat on the streets of Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, what happened in Amsterdam. The community is under assault. I spoke to students, they're scared. They're incredibly brave and courageous for standing up, but they're scared. The Jewish community feels abandoned. It's as if, enough promises from the government, it's nice to condemn anti-Semitism. It's nice to say that it's not part of our society, but it's so entrenched into the society there, and the government is not acting. At one point, I was speaking at the Toronto City Council, and I asked them, how can the police not act when you hear these protests and calls for globalized intifada? And they said to me, well, it depends on intent. And that really harks back to what we saw, if you remember, with the congressional hearings when Elise Stefanik, soon to be American ambassador.
Photo of the damage to the Montreal Convention Center from Friday night's anti-NATO protest. About 6 windows were broken. I regret to inform you that my home city of Montreal has fallen. We will never recover from these 6 broken. Guys, I'm so sorry I showed you the devastating impact of this kind of protest. It is a real war zone. I should have offered... It's my bad. I should have offered a trigger warning ahead of time. NATO, one of the world's, the most violent global fighting force on the planet, absolutely destroyed by 6 protests breaking 6 total windows in Montreal. It's over.
UN grilled the heads of top universities.
Diabolical, what happened there?
Yeah, genocide depends on context, and it's the same situation here. So I think the community is fed up. They feel abandoned by the government. Israel feels abandoned by the government, and quite frankly, it feels like Canada has abandoned their own values.
Well, Justin Trudeau was meeting with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. One wonders if that featured in their discussions. But it brings me to my next point, and that is what the Trump administration could mean for the fight against anti-Semitism. We're talking about Oxford, we're talking about Canada, Amsterdam, and of course you.
Yeah. Trump is going to punish Oxford Union for kicking out Yosef Haddad. Oh, my God. What a positively insane conversation to be having openly, without even a sense of shame. Also, it's really funny because Donald Trump also kind of an anti-Semite himself. He is anti-Semitic, but also more importantly than anti-Semitic, he's pro-Israel, and he's unconditionally pro-Israel. And that's what these guys are talking about when they say Trump will punish our enemies. Because they don't give a fuck about the real anti-Semitism. They give a fuck about anti-Israel sentiment. It's not about someone being anti-Semitic. It's about someone being anti-Israel. That's what matters.
You campuses as well, your sense of what things could look like post the 20th of January in terms of having Jews in America feel safe.
Look, I'm cautiously optimistic in knowing that there is...
Yeah. Jews in America are going to feel so safe. Even though 80% of the Jews in America voted against Trump, they're going to feel so safe with Donald Trump, though, for sure. Jews in America, notoriously unfamiliar with the ways in which fascism manifests. Definitely. Just like when Jews in America felt super safe when Trump was president last time, and he primed the Nazis so fucking hard that they were running around screaming, Jews will not replace us, in the streets of the United States of America. This is the problem. When you care more about Israel than you do about anti-Semitism, you say dumb shit like this, Jews in America will feel safe when you got Christian nationalists in positions of power.
There is a sense of unpredictability in terms of what will happen, but we certainly need to judge in terms of what we have, and that includes the people that have been appointed to high-level cabinet positions, and they're all incredibly staunch friends and allies, supporters of Israel, who have been unwavering in speaking out against anti-Semitism. And we have to look at also what the president himself, or president-elect, has said. One of his first statements in the days after election, they said that they will take accreditation away and take funding away from those universities that receive federal funding but yet continue to not only engage in anti-Semitism but refuse to take action. So I think there will be positive steps in terms of not just on campuses but elsewhere and in the international arena, which is so critical as well, including at the UN and elsewhere. So time will tell, but I think the initial steps are quite positive.
At 12 minutes after the hour, another big story is the president-elect and the things that he's already talking about doing when he takes over. One, if you guys don't seal up your border in the north,
He's done such little shit so far that these guys are desperate to find something that he's doing to be like, he made Trudeau scared. Like, they're so desperate to cling on to anything, dude. He made Trudeau scared, guys. Oh, he's cooking.
So believe it or not, CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan, I think he pronounces it Donnie O'Sullivan. He interviewed Hasan Piker in the wake of
My goat Kyle, even with that hair, did a video defending my ass. And I love that.
Of Kamala's loss. There was an actual Hasan Piker segment on CNN in the wake of Kamala's loss where they try to get his take like, hey, why did she lose? So in other words, they're now acknowledging that there are lefty streamers and podcasters who get decent numbers because, of course, the right sort of dominates the podcast space more generally, and Trump went on a whole bunch of podcasts that are either overtly right-wing or like non-political but lean right socially and culturally. We went on Andrew Schultz's podcast and Theo Von and Joe Rogan, and you even had J.D. Vance went on Tim Dillon's show. And so this space, which is nominally non-political but certainly leans right, it led to the impression, man, this podcast base is just flat out right-wing. Democrats don't have the infrastructure to compete with it. And look, that's kind of bullshit, right? Because you're never going to get a left-wing space online that truly rivals the behemoth that is the right online, because there's so much big money backing the right online. And to be fair, when I say that, I'm thinking more of like, the Daily Wires of the world. That's a massive operation that has massive funding from billionaires. And you have this like marriage of like the right-wing think tanks and this right-wing online media infrastructure. And then, of course, you have Rogan is an absolute behemoth. He didn't come up overtly political, but he's become more political over time. Of course, he has a massive multi-$100 million deal with Spotify, or at least he did. And whereas, look, on the Democratic side, the left, it's hard for the left to build out infrastructure like that because nobody would fund the left, because the left says we want to tax the corporations, right? We want billionaires and wealthy people to have less money, and we want to redistribute the wealth to the working class. And so you're not going to find an investor who's too keen on that idea. But having said that, given all of like the institutional biases,
yeah, it'd be the dumbest fucking investment of all time. Hey, I'm gonna go invest money into a propaganda mouthpiece whose primary purpose is to make me not exist. Okay, my level of wealth inequality must not exist. And as a very wealthy guy, I'm just gonna dump a shitload of money into people that proudly and loudly say that over and over again.
Against the left, there are, of course, outlets that are on the left, or there are individual podcasters or streamers who are on the left. Some of them a little more Democratic Party adjacent, like your Brian Tyler Cohen's, for example. Some of them a little bit more outsiders, like your Hasan, for example. But it's interesting that now this is probably the first time that I've seen a genuine acknowledgement of, yeah, there actually is some Democratic media, some liberal media, and some left-wing media. So CNN went and spoke to Hasan Piker. And here we have not only what Hasan said, but the reaction from Bakari Sellers, which is interesting to say the least. So let's watch, and then I'll break it down for you.
Hasan Piker is a social media superstar, really, with almost 3 million followers on the video streaming platform Twitch. He's a progressive fan of Bernie Sanders. So popular, Democratic Party invited him to the DNC in August, and he sat down with CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan.
And by the way, didn't he get kicked out? I think he got kicked out towards the end. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put it below.
Here's a little bit.
There's a general sense that when it comes to the world of podcasts,
we let bygones be bygones.
We
let bygones be bygones.
Call it that Trump did a much better job at that than Democrats and Harris.
Absolutely. I think that's true.
Harris did consider going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But she didn't. What is it that the Democrat Party has to do differently?
Well, I think that they need to change their policies.
It's a policy thing.
Yes, it's 100% a policy thing. Which is the boring answer. Although it would be very self-serving for me to say, I'm the left's Joe Rogan, the Democratic Party should give me millions of dollars. That's not going to solve this problem. What will solve this problem is if the Democratic Party actually adopts real left-wing economic populist messaging instead of purposely avoiding that stuff because they're terrified of upsetting their corporate donors. I think Trump speaks to mail insecurities better, and I think Trump speaks to the anger that people have, whereas the other side of the political spectrum does not speak to that anger at all.
Joining us right now, CNN senior political commentator Bakari Sellers and Lance Trover, the former spokesperson for Doug Burgum when he was running in the Republican presidential primary. It's good to see you guys. Thank you. Bakari, what do you think of all that, what Hasan Piker was telling Donnie?
I wish he was paying attention. I mean, it's patently absurd to say that he wishes that Kamala Harris would adopt some populist economic policies. Was he talking about the fact that she wanted to build 3 million new homes with housing tax credits, or was he talking about the child tax credit or the earned income tax credit?
You guys have heard my commentary on this, obviously. It's so funny to be like, that's called populism. You don't understand. You don't know what populism is. Thanks, man. Kind of wild. Hasan does a bid and doesn't want to have a conversation. I don't know. People want clicks, I guess. At least invite me to the dialogue in your head. Bakari, you Apex shill. Hasan just read this tweet live and said he's down to have you on, and he's never had an issue with that. God damn. My fans are ripping into him. By the way, I didn't know that Bakari Sellers wanted to come on the broadcast. Like, I'm down to have him on when I come back from London. I don't know why he thinks like I am terrified of him. Lol, I'm right here. I don't understand. Does he want to have a conversation on Twitter? Because I don't think that's going to work in his favor. Because I cooked his ass once already and I could cook him again. You know what I mean? Damn, this one banged. I said, I don't think Americans could pull some shit off like this. Not going to lie. 92,000 likes. Holy fuck. He don't watch the stream. I know. All right, let's just move on, actually. Let's get back to Kyle.
I mean, the economic policies that she laid out were numerous. And she was the one who actually put forth policy plans. She put forth policy plans for African-American males. She put forth policy plans for Hispanic voters. So, I mean, I find it really troubling when people want to have a policy discussion. The fact is, more people know what was in Drake's lawsuit against UMG, and they've actually studied that more than they studied Kamala Harris's policy proposals on social media. So I don't really want to hear a conversation about she should have put forth more economic policy proposals when that was not the issue in this race at all.
Okay. Let me react to this. So on the overarching point, on the macro point, Hasan is completely correct, and I'll break that down in a second. There is a micro point here, though, where Bakari's not wrong. So Bakari's not wrong because there was a blind study that was done, and in that blind study, 80% of the voters preferred Kamala Harris's policies to Trump's policies. Right? So this is not just about policy. It's not.
Yeah, I recognize that as well. I also see that as a failure of the campaign. I see that as a failure of the campaign. It's a communications failure. It's a failure of the administration, and it's a failure of the campaign. It always is the problem of the campaign. It is never the fault of the voters. Oh, man, they didn't pay attention. Oh, man, they didn't understand all the good things. They didn't understand all the good things that we were offering. It's like, no, dude, you didn't communicate it. That's it.
It's not just about policy. Now, having said that, Hasan is right on the macro point for this reason. Because what Hasan is saying is, look, you have to be in favor of the big, bold, populist policies, but you have to tie that together with a grand narrative of here are the villains and here are the good guys. And we're on the side of the good guys, and we're going to fight these villains to improve your life. And that's where the Democrats go wrong, is they are technocratic status quo managers. They're eggheads. They say, here's my list of policies. Take a look and tell me if you like it. And it's it's like box checking type attitude, right? And that's not going to work, especially because voters just didn't believe Kamala, right? They didn't believe it. If you ask people, hey, what's Trump about? Trump, they say, oh, he's in favor of cracking down on immigration, right? Like there's an answer there. In Trump's conception of the world, you need to, for all of your problems, you need to blame immigrants, you need to blame trans people, you need to blame Hollywood and cultural elites and democratic elites. They are the cause of all of your problems, and I am going to fight for you.
And he also did a good job of being like, you feel the pressure of the economy, and you know who's at fault? Immigrants. I'm going to save you from that. He would recognize the anger and frustration that people felt, and then he would redirect that specifically towards an area that he's comfortable fighting in. And then Democrats were like, okay, we'll swim in these treacherous waters with you. It's like, no, that's their water. Okay? This is why I always say, I don't go to the neighborhood where sharks are. I don't swim in their water. And they respect me for it. But if I catch a shark walking down the street, I'll beat his ass. If I see a shark out of the water, I'm kicking him in the fucking face. Because he's dying anyway. He can't breathe. Same goes for me in his space. I'm not going to his backyard. I'm not going to his neighborhood swimming around. Wait, you always say that? I have said this before. I've talked about why I'm afraid of going in the ocean. I have respect for the sharks. I don't go into their neighborhood because of my respect for the sharks. Okay? But if they came into my neighborhood, I beat their ass.
So there's an answer. There's a story. There's a narrative. On the Democratic side, even though Kamala's policies were 1 trillion times better, there is no story. There is no narrative. Right? So, in other words, what Hasan's point is, and those are good policies Bakari laid out, but let's keep it real. A tax credit is not going to hit as hard as universal health care. Everybody gets health care. It's not going to hit as hard as we're going to raise the minimum wage. Everybody's getting a wage increase. It's not going to hit as hard as you are screwed right now because of billionaires and multinational corporations and the big money donors who have rigged the government in their favor and against you. I'm going to stand up and fight the billionaires and the donor class.
No, you don't understand. Kamala Harris fought the transnational gangs.
And I'm going to return the power to the people and deliver you guys the things that you say you want. So, as I pointed out in the previous segment, there's actually data to back up Hasan's point here, right? This is the data. So, early on in the process, Kamala was leaning heavy into progressive economic issues. Capital gains tax, billionaire tax, corporate accountability, tax the rich, stuff like that, right? And then as time went on, the progressive economic issues fell off, and she started talking.
I wonder why. Why? Oh, I wonder if it was like right around the same time as Tony West was like, yo, Kamala, my sister-in-law, maybe you need to cut it out with this anti-billionaire, anti-corporate messaging.
Talking more broadly about the economy, right? Think wages, jobs, workers, unemployment, whatever, stock market type shit, more general stuff, small business related stuff. So it started out more populist, more progressive, then became less so as time went on and became more general, almost sounding like a moderate Republican more as time went on. And to me, this is the biggest chart to show here. This is some data from Jacobin. They did an analysis of Kamala's rhetoric throughout the campaign. This is the big one right here. So at the very beginning, Kamala was really leaning into anti-elite rhetoric. In other words, she was doing much more of what Hasan wanted her to do, right? It was more bold policy stuff. The policy stuff was front and center, and there was more of an anti-elite narrative around it. Think of the ban on price gouging for groceries. So started out with way more anti-elite rhetoric than pro-democracy rhetoric. And then as time went on, the anti-elite rhetoric fell off a cliff. And at the end, she was just doing democracy stuff. So in other words, copying the Biden 2020 playbook of rule of law and the Constitution and democracy. Now,
to be fair, Biden was more anti-corporate populist than Kamala was in both 2020 and in his administration as well. Biden fucking kept saying, it's not Wall Street. Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class did. Even then, he should have said workers, and the laborers built the middle class. He would say that. I remember.
And that's not to say that stuff isn't important. It is important, and Trump is a threat to those things.
They're beating your ass on Twitter right now.
But from an electoral perspective, the arguments that land better with voters, it's the anti-elite stuff. It's the anti-establishment stuff. And at the beginning, she was doing that, and she picked Tim Walz, who's very anti-establishment, very populist, progressive. And there was a brief moment there early on where she was up 7 points in a poll on Trump. 7 points. She ended up losing by 1.5 points. And as time went by, it was less of the progressive populist stuff, less of the anti-elite stuff, and it became more democracy, copying the 2020 Joe Biden playbook. And so the result was she ended up losing.
Jinkies.
So what Bakari is missing, the implication of what Bakari is saying here is kind of like she did everything she couldn't, it didn't work. That's kind of what his point is.
Stop.
Right? Or there are other factors that Hasan's not taking into consideration, like race and gender, which effectively hurt her because people wouldn't vote for a black woman. these are like the implications of what Bakari's saying. And to be fair, I don't think Hasan would say that was a non-factor. I don't think Hasan would say race and gender played no role whatsoever, right? But Bakari's just kind of wrong that there's nothing she could have done different to win. I just think that's incorrect. And I think we need to learn the lessons for the future. And the reality is, look, Trump might be so horrible for so long that any Democrat with a fucking pulse wins. That's absolutely true. But then if you don't want the same old in terms of policies, and you really want to fix this country, you better hope that it's somebody who's actually anti-elite, actually anti-establishment, who's actually going to deliver on progressive populist policies, right? And so, again, Hasan's right on the macro point. Bakari's not wrong. It's not like it's just policy. The reality is it's policy plus populist messaging and having a narrative and a story.
No, it's also being able to earnestly communicate that. You need to be authentic. You need to be authentic. You need to be able to show Americans that you do genuinely care about this shit. And that's a really hard thing to do to begin with. It's not just about having a good product. You need to be able to sell it too. And the issue is Democrats don't have a good product and they have no good salespersons. They are absolute doo-doo on communicating earnesty. And they don't even give a shit about the good policies either. So it's always like they're always slated for defeat.
And as time went on, she had no narrative, she had no story, and she pretty much dropped the anti-elite rhetoric. And that kind of doomed her, right? So that's the takeaway. God, it's a real shame, right? Because, I don't know, a guy like Bakari Sellers, I don't know if he would ever admit what I'm saying here, right? It's easy to just take that clip of Hasan and react to it and say it's not just about policies. I agree, it's not just about policies. But it's like policies plus the populist progressive narrativizing. That's the big part, man, because we are a lot vibes-based. We are. And to just go down your checklist is one thing, even if the things are good and sound good, it's more fits in with human nature to have this grand narrative where you're at the center of it and you're representing the people, the forces of good against the forces of evil. But if you have no forces of evil and you don't represent that which is good and your voters don't represent that which is good, it's harder for people to get excited about that, right? And look, it's possible at the end of the day, Kamala is just not the one to deliver that message. But then that is her problem, and that's why I keep saying Jon Stewart 2028, because Jon Stewart hits everything, right? He knows the narrative, he knows the story.
Oh my God. We're so cooked, bro.
He knows who the villains are, and you have to represent those popular policies with that narrative, right? And again, Kamala did have some good policies, but it wasn't tied with a narrative, and she didn't continue with the early on strategy, which was working well.
I guess Jon Stewart would be better than like most of the Democrats.
Of the Biden team came in there and really screwed the pooch 1,000 times over. A lot of the Biden people came in there. They said, drop the weird stuff, drop the we're not going back stuff, stop leaning into the ban on price gouging stuff, talk more about democracy. Here, do 17 events with Liz Cheney. And that's the other thing. I don't know if Bakari is willing to reckon with the fact that that stuff certainly did not help and almost definitely hurt. Running around with Liz Cheney everywhere was a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. It really undercuts your message if you're trying to say, Trump and the Republicans are a threat to democracy, and here I am campaigning with a Republican. It really does kind of undercut your message. And so, I think it was a much bigger problem. I'm going to go right-wing on the border. I'm going to talk about owning a Glock. I'm going to run around with Liz Cheney. I think that stuff hurt way more than it helped. And the evidence of that is, again, Trump got 94% of the Republican vote in 2020, and he got 94% of the Republican vote in 2024. And so that strategy just objectively didn't get them across the finish line. And what I want to prevent is Democrats from going, no, we need to go further in that direction in order to win. We need to be more pro-Republican. We need to be more neoliberal. We need to be less woke, right? I'm afraid of that. And that's sort of the direction a lot of commentators want to take us in. And it's important that we stand up against that. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and...
On that note, a short-ass 4-hour and 30-minute session. I am very tired. So I'm going to end it here. Okay. I need to go sleepy time. And I'll be live tomorrow, as you guys know, from Cambridge with a speech that I may or may not have written. Hopefully I'll write some tomorrow. If not, I'll just freestyle it. Who knows? Probably not the best idea, but I'm a bit of a crazy guy, as you know. I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.